and we're live.
Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone and good afternoon. I'm State Senator Shelley Mayer in the 37th Senate District. For those of you Westchester people, that is from the Bronx border on McLean Avenue in Yonkers to Bedford, all along the Sound Shore, including the town of Eastchester, and then parts of the city of White Plains, parts of the city of New Rochelle, part of the city of Yonkers, and then all the way up, including Portchester, until North Castle and Bedford. And it's a pleasure to be here with some really fantastic experts who I called on to help us, including myself, understand the situation with Con Ed, how to understand our bill, what we can do about it. And obviously this was prompted by the outcry from the constituents that I represent throughout my district about their January Con Ed bill. Now there's other utility providers in New York, many of them have the same practices that led to this, what happened in January, but we're focused here on the Con Ed portion of the district, which is the great majority of my district, and Con Ed's energy practices. And we're very fortunate to be joined by my friends at PULP, which is the Public Utility Law Project. Lori Wheelock, who is the Deputy General Counsel and Deputy Director of the Public Utility Law Project at PULP. And Richard Berkley, also an attorney, is the Executive Director of the Public Utility Law Project. And they're gonna go through their presentation about the bill, how to understand it, how to fight it, which parts are regulated, which parts are not, a little bit of the explanation of what happened and what we can do about it. Then we're really lucky to be joined by my friend Nina Orville, who is the director or executive director now of Sustainable Westchester, which is a wonderful organization, an innovative nonprofit whose members are the municipalities of Westchester County, and they help municipalities accelerate programs that lead to more predictable energy prices for municipalities and individuals. And I'll let Nina describe the opportunities that Sustainable Westchester provides to municipalities and individuals and what she can help us do. Let me just back up a little. You know, I have a very wonderful staff that listens to people, hears their calls and reads their emails. And we got inundated in late January by people just outraged and crying about their energy bills from Con Ed. One woman told me that she had to live upstairs on the second floor of her house in a single room because she had to keep the downstairs cold enough to be sure that she could afford the February bill. And she just literally, you know, other than to go downstairs to go out the door, could not go outside. We had other people in tears, and of course, many people in arrears already because of COVID and the economic troubles. I called the Public Service Commission. I dealt with a high-level person there, and I said, what are you doing about this? Aren't you supposed to be advocates for people? And they said, basically, you know, it got cold. And I said, are you kidding me? You're telling me, a state senator, it got cold in January? And that's the reason for this bill? I said, that's just not acceptable. And you have to change your role. And I said, we're going to write a letter demanding you do more. And so the next day on February 10th, the majority leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, and I, we both represent large portions of Westchester, wrote a letter to both the Public Service Commission and Con Ed, telling them to pursue all options to suspend their rate increase, which was already in effect, and to flatten out payments. Also, to investigate and provide information on hedging, which I'm sure our friends from PULP will explain to us, where it turned out they really did, frankly, mess up masterfully. And thirdly, affirmatively reach out to all ratepayers to communicate the details of the situation and what relief is available. So the day after, the governor issued a press release saying that the Public Service Commission was writing Con Ed, basically asking for the same three things, which they did ask for. And Con Ed thereafter said they were going to be more public in their communications with their ratepayers. One thing that the Public Service Commission found, and again, I think PULP will say that, is that they hedged. In other words, they bet on the price of energy incorrectly in a way that led to a very substantial increase in our bills, all of us, including myself, which I will let them explain. So the backdrop is we had this incredible rate increase, not explained, not forewarned, and frankly, not justifiable in my opinion, lay opinion. We coupled that with pushing all of us together, the Public Service Commission, which is supposed to be the regulator, to do more. And now we are faced with, in addition, the request of Con Ed for an additional rate increase, which is currently pending before the Public Service Commission. So one thing, and I'm going to stop here. I'm going to encourage people, two things. Complain to the Public Service Commission about your bill that is too high. The more people they hear from, the more they respond. They need to hear from people. So we'll show you how to do that. And two, sign up to oppose Con Ed's proposed rate increase, which is on the Public Service Commission calendar coming up in the next week. You can do it online or you can submit a comment. We'll show you how to do that too. But you got to make sure your voice is heard. We are ratepayers. We are subsidizing this company, and we need a better response and a more consumer-directed way of getting energy. So I'll stop there. And the last thing I'll say is, as we transition away from a carbon-based energy policy, we need to do it in a way that keeps prices affordable. We can't jump to another form of energy that is absolutely unsustainable. We need a transition, both for us as customers and for the people who work in this industry. So I'm very hopeful that we can go down that path. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to my first two colleagues for the presentation, Richard Berkley and Lori Wheelock from Pulp. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat. Also, if you have a question on Facebook, we will try to get to those after we have both presentations, and then we will return back to questions. So with that, Richard and Lori, it's all yours.
Thank you, Senator. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to your constituents, Senator. The Public Utility Law Project, as you know, has been around for 40 years. We were actually created at the end of the last rapid increase in the cost of energy in New York at the end of the 1970s. And here, 40 years later, we're back in the same problem, and we're on the side of your consumers, your constituents, to try and help them through this problem. And so here's all of our contact information. We'll put it also into the chat later on, and we'll talk about some of the reasons why everybody got such a huge bill from Con Edison in the next couple of minutes. So what we're going to talk about today is the energy bill surge from Con Edison and what consumers can do. And we'll try and be both comprehensive but easy to follow along. So the Public Service Commission is the regulator of the state's electric, gas, steam, telecommunications, and water utilities, and the cable industry is part of that. The commission consists normally of 5 members. Right now it's 7 members. They are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state senate. By statute, they are supposed to be independent of the governor. The Department of Public Service is the expert staff that work for the commission. And both the department and the commission have a very broad mandate to ensure access to safe and reliable utility service at just and reasonable rates. So one of the things that the Department of Public Service and PSC did back in 1998 was they deregulated the energy markets in New York. And so your Con Edison bill now has 2 pieces to it. One is called delivery charges, and that is completely under the control of Con Edison. So when your delivery charges go up, that is something that Con Edison did, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Supply charges are their purchase of electricity and their purchase of natural gas, which they provide to you under the law without marking up the cost at all. So the supply side of the equation, that is natural gas in New York State and electric in New York State, are deregulated. Con Edison doesn't control any generators that create electricity. They buy it essentially at an auction. And same thing with natural gas. In 2019, the Public Service Commission approved a 3-year increase for Con Edison, and the rates went up every year. The most recent rate increase was about between 4 and 7% in January of 2022. So back to back, you got an increase in January from a 3-year-old rate case, and then we had the bill surge on top of it. And I'll point out that the rate case that Senator Mayer just mentioned, Con Edison came in and asked for an additional $1.7 billion to increase charges to all of you that are watching this today on January 28th. That rate case will probably finish sometime around November of this year. We'll be on your side. We're going to be fighting for low and fixed income seniors. And again, we also urge you to call in and tell the company and tell the Public Service Commission that you're angry about the increase and that you oppose the increase they're asking for. Now, as a practical matter, the cost of natural gas and the cost of electric are up a great deal in New York. And so that is what created the huge surge in the cost of the supply side. And because natural gas is primarily used in New York to generate electricity, that also increased the cost of electricity a great deal. Now, the utilities have a legal duty to forecast, to look into their crystal ball and look ahead to the future and plan when they think costs are going to go up, and then they're supposed to protect consumers against rapid increases of cost. In October of 2021, the federal government, Energy Information Administration, warned all the states and all the utilities in the United States that the cost of natural gas was going to go up between 20 and 30%. The cost of fuel oil, for those people in Westchester that still use fuel oil for their heat, was going to go up somewhere between 30 and 40 or 50%. And for those people who have propane stoves, I think that's mostly Putnam County, not so much Westchester anymore. That might go up as much as 90%. And by the way, those forecasts were if the winter was as warm as last winter. As we all know, this January and the beginning of this February were much colder than last year. And so that's where the bill surge came from. Next slide, please, Laura. So in the end, many consumers receive double or triple their normal bill. And that's a couple of things put together. One is that the cost of natural gas and the cost of electric was much higher than normal. Number two was that it was colder. And so we all used a lot more than we used last year at the same time. So if you looked at your last year bill and you looked at this year bill, you'd be shocked. My bill for this February was 3.5 times what my bill was last year. And then finally, on top of all those things, we're all at home a lot more. For people who are still working entirely or primarily from home, as opposed to in the workplace, remember that when we were all going to work and commuting, you were an hour or two a day commuting, you were 8 or 9 hours in the office. So 10 hours a day, you didn't have your lights on, you had your heat turned down low, and you weren't using office equipment in your house. And so all those things together added up to a huge increase in electric and gas costs for everybody. But again, the companies and the regulator had a duty to warn you early and often and to protect you against this. Now, you can file a complaint about the bill surge, and you should file a complaint with the Department of Public Service. Tell them that your Con Ed bill has skyrocketed, provide details, and request that as they investigate the company, which they're doing in response to Senator Stewart Cousins and Senator Mayer's letter. The New York City and Westchester congressional delegation also wrote to the governor and requested an investigation. So in other words, shorthand, your elected officials are acting on your side as always, and they have been leaning on the governor and on the Public Service Commission to look into this and find out what happened and make sure it never happens again, but also to see if they can find some kind of remedies for you all. So again, you can file a complaint. We urge that you do. The 800 number is right here. And you can also file online by clicking on this link that's in the top here. We also suggest that if you believe that your electric and gas are too expensive already, and Con Ed is looking for a 21% increase in the cost of electric and an 18% increase in the cost of gas for year one of their rate case. Again, $1.7 billion of additional costs to the 3 million households that get service from them. There are a couple of investigations going on right now. Senator Skoufis in the Senate Committee on Investigations and Government Operations is investigating billing practices at all of the utilities, including Central Hudson, which serves right down to the northern tip of Westchester. And there's also a separate investigation by the Public Service Commission, and we are watching those investigations and looking into them too. The New York State Attorney General, Tish James, has also launched an investigation into Con Edison. And for those of you who also receive service from one of the other utilities, all of the energy utilities are being looked at. But Con Edison's experience and the harm visited on the customers was unique in the state. The only utility that did as poorly during this commodity price increase was Central Hudson for the Central Hudson Valley. And I want to point out before we go on to the next slide that because of this horrible war that's going on in Europe right now, the cost of natural gas, the cost of fuel oil, the cost of propane are all going to remain higher, at least for the rest of this year. When we were first talking about this with people before the war broke out, we were telling people that this would probably go away by the summer. And our belief now is that we'll still have these higher prices and perhaps even higher, as you've all noticed the price of gasoline going up, that this might last for the remaining part of the year. So before I move on to the next slide, I want to point out that Con Edison is already beginning to issue credits. They have said that they got January and February wrong, but that they have gotten March correct. And they're issuing credits basically to make up for the overcharges that you all had. That may or may not be true. That's something that can be investigated as an issue of fact by all the various investigations that are looking at this. And we are concerned that there have been hundreds of millions of dollars of increases in harms to consumers. And so we're continuing to pressure all the investigating entities to look into that and to find out what they and we need to do next to protect you. Next slide, please. So last slide I'll do, and then we'll move over to Lori. What else can I do if I'm falling behind on my bill? So we always encourage customers to pay what you can when you can. And as we know, there are more than 1.3 million households, or roughly 1 in 5 New Yorkers, are 60 days or more behind on their energy utility bills. We always suggest that you talk to them first and tell them all I can pay this month is $5 or $10. Pay what you can does not mean skip buying food, don't buy medicine for your family, don't skip any other vital things that you need to pay for, but tell them where you are financially and pay them what's possible. Contact the utility then and ask them to specify to you, is a termination scheduled? And if so, when is it going to be? If there is a termination date scheduled, ask the utility for a 30-day courtesy hold on your account so that you can have some time to remedy the situation. And that means either call the Public Service Commission and request assistance from them, or if you're low income or low fixed income, call us and we'll give you our number later on. We exist to help low income and low fixed income New Yorkers. If you've sought financial assistance for your unpaid bills, then what we suggest to you is talk to the Westchester Department of Social Services and talk to them, because they may be able to provide you with a home energy assistance program, otherwise known as Heap. And there are a lot of benefits that you can get from that. If you have not sought funds from charitable groups or religious affinity groups, basically religious communities, we suggest that you talk to them too. And when you talk to the utility, tell them that you're reaching out for help. A couple of last things. If someone in the house has a serious or chronic medical condition, you can get a 30-day extension automatically by sending in a doctor's letter. And we can provide in the chat later on a link to what the requirements are of such a letter. Or if someone in your house is using life-sustaining equipment, which is essentially equipment where the electric has to stay on or someone will die, that household can never be shut off, plain and simple. So you need to tell the utility. They tend not to do as good a job as we'd like them to do in figuring this out. Finally, every utility consumer in the state of New York has an absolute legal right, 40-year-old legal right, to something called a deferred payment agreement, which must be individually negotiated to fit your financial circumstances. In other words, it must be affordable for you. And what that means is a practical matter for a household with no more resources. You may have lost one or two incomes. Someone may have passed away, unfortunately, during COVID. Your deferred payment agreement can be as inexpensive as $0 on your back arrears and $10 a month going forward until you pay off the back arrears on top of your existing bill. If you haven't asked for one of those already, we suggest that you talk to the company and ask for one of those immediately. And let me say it last again and repeat, file a complaint with the Department of Public Service. If your bills have surged like we know so many have in the Con Edison territory, and file a complaint if the company, when they talk to you about the deferred payment agreement, doesn't tell you that you have a right for it to be affordable under the law. If they try and give you some baloney about give us half, just hang up on them and file a complaint with the Department of Public Service. And let me stop there. And Lori, do you want to pick up the rest?
Sure. So in the last couple of minutes, I just wanted to go over some more information about the assistance programs. And one last thing about this is a checklist that we use at Pulp. We do a lot of policy work and get involved with the rate cases to represent low-income individuals. But we also have a whole unit of Pulp now that does direct services. So just like legal aid, we don't charge for our services, but we help low-income individuals navigate this whole world, which can be really overwhelming. But what I like to tell people, this is a checklist. 1 or 2 bullet points may work for you. Someone else may have 3. So it really can be used to try and help someone determine what their protections are. And we're, happy to help you navigate that. So wanted to just highlight some of the really important existing utility programs that are out there. The first is the Home Energy Assistance Program, Heap. Again, you can contact Department of Social Services to learn more. There are multiple types of Heap, almost like flavors of ice cream. So you have the regular benefit that could help someone with a one-time grant ranging from about $350 to $420 to emergency grants. If you actually get a termination notice from Con Edison, you can contact Department of Social Services and potentially apply for that grant as well. And so that would be a second amount of money to go towards paying down your bill. Renters can apply for Heap. If you're a homeowner and you wake up and all of a sudden your furnace or your boiler isn't working, there's also a repair program through Heap as well. And in the hot summer months, you can apply for a cooling grant to actually purchase an Energy Star air conditioning unit. When those Heap grants run out, and we're also going to talk about some assistance programs that were created because of the COVID-19 health pandemic, you can also talk to Department of Social Services about emergency energy assistance called the One Shot. Richard's also alluded to the fact that there can be religious programs or affinity programs. Some groups like Salvation Army have money that's available, and that's a great way. We work with Senator Mayer's office with constituents to help them find local resources when they've exhausted these programs. Con Ed also has a monthly low-income bill discount program. The easiest way to qualify is through that first Heap grant. You get the Heap grant, it gets sent to Con Edison. They enroll you in a program that lasts for a year where you can get discounts off of your bill every month. Right now, we're seeing about $26 a month come off people's bills because they're enrolled in this program. And that is $26 that you can put towards everything else, from co-pays to medicine to food. You don't have to just receive Heap. If you receive any of these benefits and you get that award letter, you can send it to Con Ed and they will enroll you in that program. The last thing I want to highlight before I turn it back over is some of the COVID related financial assistance program. So if you're a renter and you applied for ERAP, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, there is funding that is being released to help pay the utilities. And so if you applied for ERAP and you haven't heard yet about the utility portion, please contact DSS and ask them when they should expect those funds to be released. It's been kind of slow. We've been watching it through different media stories, and different, constituents have talked to us, but there is money there. The regular arrears supplement is a really important program that can apply up to $10,000 towards electric and gas. It just closed yesterday because it ran out of funds. But again, through our partnership with Senator Mayer and the majority leaders in Albany, we're hopeful that there'll be more money in this program thanks to the budget, which should be resolved by April 1st. So I'm sure there'll be more information to come in the Q&A, and I'm going to be sharing this presentation with staff so that they can get it out to everyone so that you have this information readily available.
Thank you so much, Richard and Lori. That was fantastic. I actually have some questions, and then just quickly, one is, how can you see that you got a credit on your March bill? Is there, are you going to be able to see a line that says credit issued?
So do you want to answer that, Lori, or you want me to?
Maybe we need to piggyback, so I'll go
Okay.
first. When you look at your Con Ed bill, there's a couple of different places to look. In the top left-hand corner, underneath how much you owe, you should see an adjustment section. And then under that, on the first page, Con Ed has these little like megaphones that say like message center, alert. Look for a megaphone that should provide more information. And we, again, know that this can be really difficult to review. So you can also reach out to our group and we're happy to help review a bill. Richard, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say that Con Edison, when in the adjustment section, it literally just says adjustment. It doesn't tell you why, it doesn't tell you what. You just see more money or less money being added to your bill. So a credit or maybe an additional charge, they don't tell you what it's about.
Okay, very helpful. And I want to point out that in the budget, which we're still negotiating with the governor, both the Senate and the Assembly are proposing to put a substantial amount of money in the budget for utility arrears, because it's a statewide problem. And I would like to see it go to as broad a number of people as possible, not be restricted to exclusively low income, because I have a lot of middle income people in my district who simply got hit so hard from this that they did pay this bill that was twice or three times their prior bill, but then they didn't have money. And now they are paying higher gas prices and other things that we are experiencing. So I'm hopeful we're going to find some money and allocate money in the budget. Who knows? We have to go fight it till the end of March, but we have made a commitment that we're going to try to achieve arrears funds. So now I'm going to turn it over to Nina Orville from Sustainable Westchester. And after Nina's presentation, I know there's been some very thoughtful questions here in the chat and probably some others, but we will get to those after Nina speaks.
Thank you, Senator. I'm so happy to join you and your constituents this afternoon on this call. So I'm going to share a little bit of information about Sustainable Westchester and some of the different energy related programs that we have that might be of value to people tuning in. So first of all, Sustainable Westchester is a nonprofit organization. As the Senator indicated, our members are the municipalities of Westchester County, including Westchester County government itself. And our mission is to provide sustainable, environmentally and fiscally sound solutions to increase the resilience and the strength of our communities. We have a number of different programs at Sustainable Westchester. I'm not going to review them all in detail, but they relate to community energy programs, programs that focus on energy consumed by buildings, electrification solutions, including clean transportation and sustainable landscaping, and zero waste program to help people know how to properly recycle their materials. And I'm going to delve now just into a few of these programs that are particularly relevant for this audience. So the first program that I'll talk about is Westchester Power. It's our flagship energy program at Sustainable Westchester. It's the first program of its type in New York State, so it's considered the state model, and it's regulated by the Public Service Commission. We have 29 municipalities participating in the Westchester Power program. Yonkers joined in March, and that means that we're serving about 145,000 households and small businesses in those municipalities. The municipalities that are colored in green are the ones that participate in the program. This is a program that relates only to your electricity supply. We just heard in the prior presentation the difference between supply and delivery. So this relates just to your supply. Whoever your utility is continues to deliver the electricity that's provided. Our focus is providing clean 100% New York State renewable energy, as well as a standard non-renewable option at competitive prices. And there are a number of benefits to the program. Again, it's competitively priced. One way to think of it is that it essentially offers a price cap to participants. The rates are fixed, they're not variable, and people in municipalities that participate in the program are welcome to join the program or leave the program at any time at no cost. So it makes it a simpler and easier way to understand your energy options without going to traditional ESCOs. And it also has important environmental benefits, as you can see on the images on the right of the slide, and serves as a foundation for other clean energy programs that we offer. So what are the rates? I mentioned that unlike utility rates, the Westchester Power rates are fixed. That means the program can't guarantee savings because we don't know what the utility rate is going to be in the future. But again, it can serve as a way of capping rates. So you'll see a number of columns here. There's a column for NYSEG municipalities that probably will not be relevant for most people tuning in. There are a number of municipalities participating who are in the Con Ed utility area. Those are listed on the bottom of the slide. And there's a contract that applies for those municipalities that extends through the end of June. And the rates for both renewable and standard supply are listed there. Yonkers entered the program at a different time when the utility rates had risen from when they were for the rest of the Con Ed municipalities. And so you can see the Yonkers rates listed for renewable and for standard supply there. The dates for the contracts are shown as well. So after June of this year, there's going to be a new price for those Con Ed municipalities. Again, the market price has risen. We know the new price will be higher than the current price shown there for Con Ed. The Yonkers price is fixed through the end of November of next year. So that's Westchester Power. The next program that I'll talk about briefly is Energy Smart Homes, which focuses on the energy that you use to heat and cool your homes. There are a number of benefits of using clean heating and cooling technologies, including that you're not using fossil fuels, you're improving comfort of your home and indoor air quality. And in a lot of cases, you can reduce the cost to heat and cool your home. There are a number of different options that are available that relate to clean heating and cooling, ranging from better insulating and air sealing your home. It's amazing how much less natural gas or heating oil you'll use if your home is properly insulated. And then there are other technologies that you can also employ if you've reached the end of the useful life of your heating system or your cooling system. Then it makes a lot of sense to look into some of these other options, which include air source heat pumps, geothermal solutions, and heat pump hot water heaters. I would also just mention there are benefits available for people who are income eligible. Some of these improvements can be provided for people who are income eligible at no cost. The last program that I'll talk about that we offer relates to something called demand response and improves the efficiency of the electricity grid. So through Sustainable Westchester, you can enroll in the Grid Rewards program. It has a lot of environmental benefits, it saves energy, and it actually, if you participate, it will result in you receiving a cash payment if you reduce your electricity use when you're advised it's optimal. It's the first program of its kind on the East Coast. It's available to Con Ed customers of any kind. And one of the things that's really important about it is it improves the efficiency of the electricity grid. And when the electricity grid is under a lot of stress, like if you imagine a very hot August afternoon, then the utility is relying on their dirtiest power plants to produce the electricity that people are using. There's an app that you download that teaches you about your energy use and ways to save energy. And you earn cash back, as I indicated, if you reduce your usage during the time of peak demand. And I participated last year, and I received a check back at the end of the season for $206 for essentially, changing my air conditioner settings on a few afternoons during the hottest part of the summer. So it can be very beneficial. There's also an opportunity to refer friends and earn money and have them receive money back. We do work related to commercial clean heating and cooling that I'm not going to discuss here, but if people have commercial buildings that they're interested in understanding how they might be able to improve the performance of the buildings, we're happy to meet with you and share resources that we have related to that. There's also a solar program at the moment. We don't have a lot of availability in Con Ed service territory, but more will be coming. It's called Community Solar, and it's a way to benefit from and to save money from solar installations without installing solar on your own home. It's something you can sign up for. You essentially subscribe to a solar farm. And when there's availability there, you will get a credit on your bill related to your share of the electricity that was produced. And this is something that can save you up to 10% on your electricity bill. So there's a lot of value to this. We've had some difficulty with New York State and the Public Service Commission being able to roll out some of the benefits associated with this, but there will be more coming. You can enroll in Community Solar. It doesn't matter who your electricity supplier is. This is completely independent of that. So I reviewed a number of programs. There are a number of ways you can learn more about them. There are these upcoming events that we encourage people to join and learn more about Energy Smart Homes or Grid Rewards. Again, there are a range of programs that you can participate in: Westchester Power, Energy Smart Homes, Grid Rewards, Community Solar. Please visit our website, learn more, and sign up. You can also reach us at info@sustainablewestchester.org with any questions that you have. And we're happy to take any questions now or questions that come in later.
Thank you so much, Nina. There's a number of questions here. Let me go back to one of my other questions from the beginning. One on Sustainable Westchester. There are programs individuals can participate, and there are programs that municipalities can participate. So if you have a question whether you can be involved in one of the programs you described as an individual, regardless of your municipality, you can call Sustainable Westchester and talk to someone, right?
Yes, but I would say the only program that is dependent on your municipality participating is Westchester Power.
Okay.
So if your municipality participates in Westchester Power, then that's available to you. All the other programs are on an individual opt-in basis.
Okay. And another question that has come up, I think, repeatedly here is about the delivery charges, Richard and Lori, in the Con Ed system, and what can be done to limit them as opposed to the supply charges.
So let me start this one, Lori, and then if you want to jump in if I miss anything big. So the delivery charges are the costs for the company to operate as a business corporation, to keep the lines on the poles up in the air and safe, and to run gas pipe and all that kind of stuff. And so there are two things you can do. The first one is that you can fight in every rate case to stop Con Ed from getting as much money as it wants. And the simple fact of that is that if you don't oppose a rate case where Con Edison is asking for a big increase, it's that much higher the next time you come around and you look for something like that. The second thing is to look and do investigations of the company and audits periodically, which the state does do audits, but full investigations from time to time are very important, because Con Ed is an extremely expensive utility, as we all know. And there are a number of reasons for that. And I know that honestly, no one cares about the reasons, but they have been asked and told by the city of New York, and to some extent by the county of Westchester, that they must be as close to 100% reliable as any utility in the world. And so Con Ed is probably the most reliable utility in the whole world, and that's expensive. But at the same time, as we all know, when the lights go out in Westchester, it's incredibly expensive. When New York City's lights go out, Wall Street shuts down, it's unbelievably expensive. And so they have been, spending money on the basis that we told them 40 years ago, actually almost 50 years ago, you must never have an outage. Now, that doesn't help anyone who is paying these very expensive rates, but the most important things you can do is, whenever you see something unusual in your bill, to complain immediately to the Public Service Commission. The second thing is that when there is a rate case like there is now, to talk to your elected officials and ask them to on your behalf, to represent you in the case, and to make your own complaints. The Public Service Commission does not normally hear from everyday ordinary individuals. They mostly talk to a bunch of lawyers in fancy rooms, and I say that as one of those lawyers in a fancy room. And they also talk to the utilities, but it's important and powerful when you, the residents, the customers of Con Edison, talk to them directly. And we always urge that. Did I miss anything, Lori?
I guess I would just add really quickly that, now is the time. A lot of these conversations are happening, with the CLCPA, the environmental targets that New York is meeting, with the energy future, with the pandemic, with the arrears crisis. We are having these conversations, and I see it even in the chat about the future and what does that look like? Municipalization, the renewable powers and privatization. And so, we are having those conversations, and we're working together to, try and figure out what to do long-term when it comes to these costs and how to move forward as a state with our energy future.
And I noticed there have been, there is a conversation in the chat about having a truly public utility as opposed to a privately owned but regulated utility, which is what we have here in Con Ed. And I think there is a lot of interest among legislators to ultimately find a way to get to that path. In the short term, we have what we have, and we want to use the powers of the regulators, which are greater than they have exercised, in my opinion, to do a better job and to be advocates for consumers and not placeholders for the utility. So I think both things are going on at the same time. There is an appetite to revisit the way energy is provided, not only in New York, but throughout the nation. And I think there's an effort at the federal level to look at that as well. And that is very worthwhile. And I'm happy to be part of that conversation. On the short term, my goal is to help my constituents get through this. So we have fought with the Public Service Commission before, sometimes with greater success. We have fought with Con Ed, sometimes with greater success. And I'm hopeful that this time we can get this issue of what happened in January and February addressed in a meaningful way while we look at the bigger issues. I mean, we are in the middle of the budget. I would just explain. I'm the chair of the Education Committee. My function primarily is to fight for every public school's funding, which I've been doing. So there are big issues like the future of energy, and they have to be addressed. I look forward to working on them. One question though is, and you didn't get into it in detail, but I'm quite interested in this. In the letter the Department of Public Service sent to the president of Con Ed, they said that the department staff estimates that 70% of the increase in supply rates between December and January was attributable to Con Ed's forecasting hedge values being underestimated. that they basically sort of gambled wrong on what the prices would be, as I understand it in my layperson's language. Is there any consequence for this inappropriate hedging from the regulator's point of view? Do they get a penalty? Do they get something else? Can they that they give people a credit as opposed to saying, you should? What is the power of the Public Service Commission in the face of this hedging, what I call a mistake?
So the Department of Public Service and PSC have a great deal of authority to levy fines upon utilities. Prior to Superstorm Sandy, fines used to go into the general fund. That is, they would go to the bank account of the entire state and they would affect the budget in positive ways. After Superstorm Sandy, it's now possible to return fines directly to the customers of the utility. And, we think, guessing, not having, gone through the whole investigation, that Con Ed screwed up horribly in its hedging. I think everyone on the meeting today would agree with that, because it's obvious when you look at your bill. They do a couple of things with their hedging process. One of them is that, unlike all the other utilities in the state of New York, Con Ed bought most of its energy essentially every day on the spot market, as opposed to buying in advance and trying to lock in prices looking into the future. And when prices were going down, and they've been going down since 2011 up until basically about last year in the natural gas market, buying gas and buying electric every day turned out to be mostly cheaper for the customers. And so they were allowed to do that. None of the other utilities did. And that's one of the major mistakes that they made that cost everybody a great deal of more money. My belief at this point, and this is something that we will follow up on, and if it's not done properly, then we will launch our own action and continue to look for remedies for all of you all watching, is that there will be, in the final report on the investigation into Con Ed, there will be found to have been many hundreds of millions of dollars of charges that could have been avoided if the company had done its job properly. And that money should be returned to the ratepayers. And we will see. Normal investigations take somewhere from a year to 2 years by the Public Service Commission. They set a new standard in Tropical Storm Isaias, which I'm sure everybody remembers on this call, and they were able to complete the initial investigation in 3 months. We're asking them to do this investigation as quickly as possible, because those costs that they ended up transferring onto you by hedging improperly should be a part of the rate case that's going on right now. Their request of 1.7 billion should be reduced by whatever the amount of money is that you all overpaid for in the last couple of months, and that if they don't protect you, you may overpay for the rest of the year. So does that answer your question, Senator?
Yeah, no, I think I appreciate that was actually insightful about what we might get at the end of the thing. Here's a question. If a client negotiates with Con Ed on a payment plan, which you mentioned, can they still assess a late pay fee on the remaining balances? So let's say, I think we've heard this problem. You negotiated, you're paying $50 a month, but your balance, remains. And if you don't pay your balance in whatever the time of the schedule, can they assess a late fee on that?
Would you like to grab that one, Lori?
Sure. So if you are in your payment agreement and up to date, they cannot charge a late fee. They can only charge late fees again if for some reason you miss your payment and then you break the agreement. That whole back balance comes due right then and there. And so they can charge late fees again. Late fees were also not being charged during the moratorium period on utility arrears. So for like the last year and a half, there weren't any late fees until the January, now February bills. So please do keep an eye out, because what we're seeing are the late fees can get quite high for people who've fallen behind, and it's actually eating up their low income bill discount credit for the families that are getting that. And so we've been trying to encourage people to work really quickly, get them into financial assistance, and get yourself into a payment agreement so that that amount isn't getting a late fee on it. And you can still, under the law, file complaints and fight any disputed charges. But if you're in the payment agreement, that amount can come on and off. It's just, it protects you from the late fees.
Understood.
One thing to add to that is that the law of companies being able to charge deposits, that is energy companies charging a deposit, is very strong for consumers. And so in almost every case, utilities are not supposed to lawfully charge you a deposit. We've been noticing that deposits are going up on the utilities as one of the ways to try and collect money. And for those of you who are living in apartment buildings where many of the landlords have not collected a whole bunch of money in the last 2 years, they're finding every way that they can to try and get more money coming in. The utilities are doing that. We're going to continue to keep an eye on that, and we also may request an investigation into that in the near future.
This is a question for Nina. What choices do individuals have if their community is not part of Westchester Power? Many people do not know about ESCOs. Can you explain, if you're in a community that does not have Westchester Power, the choices you have as a consumer?
Sure. So the choices you have are to stay with your utility or to switch to an energy services company, also known as an ESCO. And ESCOs have a sort of rocky history in New York. There has been a history of a lot of abusive practices by ESCOs in the way they structure the contracts and things like very high cancellation fees and teaser rates, et cetera. There's been more regulation of them lately than there had been in the past. But it is very important, if you're considering switching your supply over to an ESCO, that you really understand what the terms are, that you are looking for things like whether there is a cancellation fee, the length of the term, any other potential penalties, so that you know what you're getting into, and that you also track what the length of the term is, so that you're thinking about who you're going to want to purchase your electricity from at the end of your contract term with the ESCO. Unfortunately, it can be hard to compare ESCOs in a way that's fully transparent. There is a site on the Department of Public Service website. There's information regarding ESCO rates, but we've been advised by the Department of Public Service that it's not really accurate and up to date, and that people really shouldn't be using that. So it's a little bit of buyer beware. It's important.
Yeah.
to
No, understood. And that's a good question. I'll try to get to these other questions. Does Sustainable Westchester get large membership organizations to join, like an organization and the members? Is there an advantage in organizing that way? I think to get some of these group benefits that you've described, is that something that's within the realm of Sustainable Westchester?
It certainly can be. For instance, we've worked with faith-based organizations on a regional level to deliver some of these benefits to the congregations within that organization. And we would love to have that conversation. Anybody who has a membership association where they think the members would benefit from any of these programs, we would love to have that conversation.
Okay, another question here, trying to read off Facebook at the same time.
Length of the term is,
this is a question, sorry. One person asked, and this is for Richard and Lori really, is Con Ed a utility or a company? It can't be both. Well, I think it is actually both. It's a regulated company under New York law. And we have an anomalous situation with utilities. They are private companies, heavily regulated. In fact, more regulated than companies, in my opinion, that provide cable and other essential services, but they are regulated. And so the challenge is whether the state legislature and the governor want to sort of completely revamp the provisions by which power is provided. That's a big question. And there are people on, who I'm sure would disagree. I haven't been satisfied for a long time and have made my voice heard. But in the meanwhile, I guess my focus continues to be on making the regulators do their job better than they've done it. And we had a moment where they were after Isaias, and then it seemed to backtrack, in my opinion. One question, something is labeled as a monthly rate adjustment as an add on a bill. Can somebody explain what that is? A monthly rate adjustment.
I think we'd have to look at the whole bill, and we ask that you don't post the bill to the chat or discuss your personal bill during this meeting. All of your individual utility information is confidential, and we are under a legal requirement to maintain the confidentiality of all of your utility bills and issues. So we would, have to turn off and get off if you were going to start doing that.
Can someone call Richard, you and Lori or Pope and help get explanation of your bill? It is quite hard to read.
Yeah,
Very,
and there
very
could
much
be
so.
there could be multiple reasons for the adjustment. So I'll drop the hotline number in the chat, and we're happy to take a look at your specific situation.
Okay, there's a hotline that will help you with that. That's useful. So in the context of the investigation into what happened in January and February bills, that's going to take some time. The hope is that the March bill reflects a credit. People should actually go back and keep a record of how much they paid in January for these component pieces, delivery and supply, right? How much they paid in February and how much they paid in March to see if they got a credit. Secondly, people should complain by filing a complaint with the Public Service Commission. Even when I called, I was told not enough people had complained. So I encourage you, file a complaint. Talk about what your taxpayers' dollars pay for. They pay for an agency whose job it is to regulate. Thirdly, I urge you to weigh in opposition to the proposal for an increased rate increase. As Richard explained, one factor in the increased bill in January was the fact it was the third year of their rate increase. So these things last a long period of time, and then you sometimes forget about it. And it's built in sequentially so that it's going to continue to raise each year. And that's something I think we have to collectively oppose. And the fourth thing is, and I think everyone is mindful of that, in a moment when gas prices are rising or have risen and utility prices are subject to this rise, it is, people feel very sensitive, and correctly so, that what is this all coming to? I really can't afford my drive to work, and I can't afford the energy in my house. And so I think my job as a legislator is to, one, push for some short-term solutions. That's why I'm so happy to have Richard and Lori and Nina talking about sort of things you can do right here and now to help you manage through this, as well as the longer term solutions, which is looking for structural changes in the way energy is provided. Someone raised Long Island. Long Island has its own sort of very anomalous utility provider that frankly is not subject to regulation by the Public Service Commission, which is a frustration to my colleagues from Long Island, that they don't have the control that we have. Even as imperfect as it is, we have someone to complain to. So this is a complicated situation we've sort of inherited, and we have. Our job is to try to guide through this. And to that end, I'm very, very appreciative of those who took time. One last question here. I think it's for you, Nina. What is the status of community choice aggregation in Westchester and New York in general that could help reduce the bills? I think you mentioned it, but maybe you can discuss it again.
Sure. So community choice aggregation is the name of the type of program that is Westchester Power. So Westchester Power is a community choice aggregation program. There are, as I mentioned, in Westchester County, there are 29 municipalities participating. There are a total of 150 municipalities around New York State that have enabled community choice aggregation programs. So it's an approach that is growing, and an innovation to look for, as I had mentioned briefly, is the integration of community solar with the savings that community solar can bring into the Westchester Power program, so that that program would be able to deliver both community solar savings and electricity, both renewable or standard supply, depending on what someone selected. So it's an important way of controlling electricity costs, and it can provide the opportunity to essentially help a community reflect their values through their energy choices.
Thank you. And a last question, then I will close, is that a question about the form for complaining, which I believe the staff circulated on the chat. If you go to the link, you can complain online to the Public Service Commission. Yes, we dealt only with the Con Ed part of the district here. There are parts of my district that have a different provider. Frankly, we got fewer complaints about them, and therefore it wasn't the subject. I've had my run-ins with them as well, but on this issue, Con Ed was, as Richard and Lori said, really the major problem from my experience for my downstate City of New York and Westchester colleagues, and collectively, we felt very strongly we're going to fight for this fund for arrears. We're going to fight for some short-term changes, and we're going to fight for some long-term changes. I do want to thank my staff that helped put this together. And the reason we put it together in the middle of the day, while never ideal for me or anyone else, is that PULP, the Public Utility Law Project, is in such demand for all of my colleagues that they are at multiple other sessions throughout New York providing this kind of information, because so many people are so upset. So Emily Lavin, my communications director, Rachel Estroff, my chief of staff, Mike Press, my legislative counsel on energy issues, and Marian Joyce, a lawyer and director of constituent affairs, all of whom were right on the front edge of trying to help our constituents deal with this. So thank you to them. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you for an informative session, and we will follow up by sending everyone the presentations of both panelists. Thank you all. Best of the day to all of you. And we got lots of work ahead of us, as always. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.